Hey, this is Dawson Ness from MimicMethod.com, where you learn how to master foreign languages through sound training. In this video, I'm going to provide you with some invaluable knowledge and actionable tasks for you to master a specific type of sound, the ever-elusive nasal vowel sounds of Brazilian Portuguese. So here's how we're going to do it. First, I'm going to explain to you exactly what a nasal vowel sound is from a physiological perspective. Then, we're going to apply that knowledge and learn how to master the perception of Portuguese nasal vowels. Finally, I'm going to walk you through some drills for developing the physical awareness and coordination needed to master the articulation of these Portuguese nasal vowels. So in short, we're going to answer 3 questions about nasal vowels. What are they? How do I hear them? And how do I say them? Let's get started. Before we get into what a nasal vowel is, we need to understand first what a vowel sound is. A vowel sound is created when air from your lungs flows unrestricted and unobstructed through the mouth. So to put that in context, vowel sounds contrast from consonant sounds, which are defined by the blockage or restriction of airflow through the mouth. Now, there are 2 types of vowel sounds, oral vowels and nasal vowels. An oral vowel is created when the nasal passage is blocked and air is forced to leave exclusively out through the mouth. Now, that won't mean anything to you until you take an inside look at how the speech organ actually works. This interactive diagram here shows what exactly moves in your mouth and throat whenever you make a specific Portuguese sound. Now, all these vowels here are oral vowels, and you will notice that whenever I click them, the diagram shows how the tongue is placed in a different position for each vowel. But you should also notice a second movement. Each time I make an oral vowel, this little flap right here moves from the rest position, comes up, and blocks the nasal passage. This little flap is known as the velum, or soft palate, and when you pull it up to block the nasal passage, the air from your lungs has no place to escape but through your mouth, hence the name oral vowel. Now, the most important thing to take away from this is that the little flap here was initially at rest. Then, you had to activate muscles to pull it up and block the nasal passage. In other words, whenever you make an oral vowel in Portuguese, English, or any other language, you are unconsciously contracting muscles to move the velum. So that brings us to our original question. What is a nasal vowel? Actually, nasal vowel is a bit of a misnomer. Nasal vowels should actually be called nasal oral vowels because they occur when air passes through both the mouth and the nose. So back to that diagram. If I leave the velum in its natural rest position and expel air from the lungs, the air will naturally pass through both the nose and the mouth. So there are 2 key takeaways here. First, from a physiological perspective, the only difference between a nasal vowel and an oral vowel is the position of the velum. Second, nasal vowels are created when the velum is at rest. This last point is important because Portuguese learners often look for an extra movement or an exertion to make a nasal vowel work, but in actuality, the key is not exertion, but rather relaxation. But before we get into how to say the nasal vowel sounds, let's talk a bit about how to hear them. Imagine blowing on a harmonica in such a way that air passed through only 2 of the holes. Even though there's a single source of the air, your lungs, you will be creating 2 separate notes simultaneously. It's a similar concept for nasal vowels. Since air is passing through both your nose and your mouth, there are actually 2 different sounds occurring simultaneously, the nose sound and the mouth sound. Now you can alter mouth sounds by changing the position of your tongue. For example, each of the vowel sounds e, u, e, o have their own unique tongue position. But since we don't have tongues in our noses, and we can't do anything shy of plastic surgery to change the shape of your nasal cavity, the sound created by air resonating in the nasal cavity is going to sound the same all the time, like this, which one might think of as a humming sound. So from a perception standpoint, a nasal vowel just sounds like an oral vowel with some humming on top of it. Let's take those same 5 vowel sounds from before and add humming on top of it. E, e, ooh, eh, eh, oh, oh. These are actually the 5 nasal vowels of Portuguese. If you're struggling to hear the difference between the nasal vowel, the oral vowel, and the humming, don't worry, you won't get it right away. It takes a bit of time for your brain to tune into the small sound differences of different languages. But hearing the Portuguese nasal vowels is only half the battle. You also have to learn how to say them. So, as we already discussed, nasal vowels are created when we leave the velum relaxed and let air pass through both the mouth and the nose. Leaving your velum relaxed will be very challenging at first, since you have developed a strong habit of contracting it almost all the time when you speak English. That's why it's important to develop both an awareness and control of the muscles that move the velum. But before we get into that, I want to save you a lot of time wasting and help you develop an awareness of what the velum muscles are not. Portuguese learners often make the mistake of replacing nasal vowels with nasal consonants. Now remember, a consonant sound is created when airflow through the mouth is blocked. There are a few ways that we can block airflow out the mouth so that it passes only through the nose. The ones you're most familiar with are going to be the m and n sounds. For m, you are blocking airflow by closing your lips. For the n, you are blocking airflow by pressing your tongue against the back of your upper teeth. But there is a third way to block airflow out of the mouth, by pressing the back of your tongue against the velum. That's this sound here, nga, nga. Try to hum with your mouth open and you will naturally do this sound. Because the sound is nasally and it actually involves the velum, Portuguese learners often confuse it with a nasal vowel, but it's not the same thing. Why? Because it's not a vowel if air can't pass through the mouth. It's just humming. So make sure you know what this velar nasal consonant sound feels like. If you notice the feeling when you're trying to do a nasal vowel, then you'll know you're not doing it correctly. So now that we got that out the way, we can focus on developing the awareness of the muscles that control the velum. Here's a drill I made up to help you isolate the velum and develop an awareness of its movement. Stick your tongue out as far as you can and make this oral vowel sound. Ah. Now try to make the nasal vowel version of this sound without moving your tongue at all. Because your tongue is sticking out, you will need to retract it by an obvious amount to make that velar nasal stop we want to avoid. Notice how back of my tongue is moving upward, and my fingers are moving as the entire tongue moves backwards to reach the velum. If you see or feel your tongue moving, you know you are not doing this right. So fool around with that until you start to create some nasal vowel sounds. Then, try it without sticking your tongue out so far. Once again, try to feel and make sure that the back of your tongue is not moving at all. Once you figure out how to relax and contract the velum at will, your next task is to tune the Portuguese nasal vowels. Here are the Portuguese nasal vowels again. To practice tuning these vowels, start with their oral equivalent. Then relax the velum to add the nasalization on top, like this. You may struggle with some vowel sounds more than others. Once again, just be patient and try to drill as often as you can. And eventually, you will build the muscle memory to hit all of these sounds easily. The final stage of Portuguese nasal vowel mastery is developing speed and control over the velum. In the Portuguese language, you will need to alternate between the oral and nasal vowels quickly and often. This is not a problem for Brazilians, since they have been speaking the language since they were infants and thus have made these faster alternations trillions of times in their lives. As a non-Portuguese speaker, however, you have a bit of catch-up to do. To speed things up, I created these two drills. The double time is more of an endurance activity. Get a metronome, choose any nasal vowel, then alternate between it and its oral equivalent on every beat. After 2 measures of this, do 2 alternations per beat, like this, for another 2 measures. Then, try 4 alternations per beat for another 2 measures. Finally, go back once per beat and repeat the process 2 more times for a session. If you have time, repeat this drill with each of the Portuguese vowel sounds. The slow clap drill focuses on building your top speed. This time with no metronome, do like a dramatic slow clap and alternate between the nasal vowel and its oral equivalent. Then gradually build the speed until you get to a point that you're just jibber-jabbering. Once you reach that point, do 4 more slow versions to cool down. Repeat this 3 times per vowel per session. So that's it for this video. I hope you have a much clearer idea of what Portuguese nasal vowels are and how you can go about learning them. If you're interested in doing some more training with Portuguese sounds, I recommend checking out my premium course, The Flow of Portuguese, where you focus exclusively on training your perception and pronunciation of the Portuguese sounds by learning to sing Brazilian songs with a perfect accent and submit recordings to me for precise and personalized feedback on your pronunciation. Also, be sure to check out the other languages available in my Flow series. They all come with a 100% money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied with the results. Thanks for watching and keep on flowing.